You're watching Talking Business with me, Tanya Beckett, in London, where we're discussing life after Brexit. What will Britain's decision to leave the European Union club mean for the economy, businesses, and what sort of relationship will we now have with Europe in the future? Francis, let's start on this issue of EU funding. The UK has been a net contributor to the EU, but in fact there is also funding which supports industries, science being one of them. How great a loss do you see that, if and when that goes?
Well, again, we're hearing from businesses and local authorities that they want guarantees from the UK government that that money for everything from science parks to railway stations won't be lost.
Art, of course, you work in the finance industry. How does it change the dynamics if London is outside the EU? Just briefly, it's a big question, I know.
But the short answer is dramatically. We have our liquidity providers who come from the US. They are situated in London and they trade on our platform across to retail customers in France, Italy, Belgium, Germany. That can only happen because of the European passport. As a German regulated exchange, we are present in all those countries without any extra red tape. We got our regulation, our approval in Germany, and we can sell everywhere. And that will stop. And that will mean, on one hand, that maybe the liquidity providers have to move into Europe because they don't have the passport anymore, or have to take extra efforts to admit them to my exchange, and then they will be regulated by a European regulator.
I would actually say to Artur, you're wrong, because I can't see why the European passport in financial services can't continue, and I can't see why those elements of the free trade aspect of the single market can't continue, because it's in everybody's interest. There has to be a model that says we trade for the benefit of everybody and there is a limit on free movement of labour. That's never been done. It goes against one of the founding principles. What's wrong with that? That's what I would say.
What is wrong with that? Francis, so we just come to Francis.
I think we need to, all of us, work together at a national level, business, unions, government. I think we need to roll up our sleeves. But what is clear is that there wasn't a plan as to what would happen if the Brexit vote was won.
Well, it's difficult before you start negotiations. So what would your vision be?
Well, let's be clear that as soon as Article 50 is triggered, then the UK's power drains by each month that negotiation goes on.
There is a time frame, is what you're saying.
So does
there is what
there
vision,
is a time
as
frame,
you've pointed out, as we've all pointed out, the
us.
democratic
I
decision within the UK was to leave. So what vision would you have?
The TUC's preference, if we are stuck with this decision, which of course we respect, is that we go for the Norway model. But as we said throughout the campaign, that means you can't have your cake and eat it.
Well,
you've got to have, if you want access to the single market, you have to have free movement.
But you don't have to have free
and you have to have rights for working people
just going to come and
to stop unfair competition.
I'm going to ask Art that question. Why is it that it is so central to the idea of free trade that you must also have free movement of workers?
We have to make sure, when I say we, all in the EU, we have to make sure that we are competing on a level playing field. And the level playing field determines, for example, that there can't be, let's say, child labour in the UK. That wouldn't be allowed, or that certain working hours would be in a certain framework. Creating those kind of agreements makes it actually possible to compete across us without any extra barriers.
Well,
now, free movement, if I may, let me, sorry, but free movement is so important for the EU because we have countries which do not have the kind of industry where their population can work. We need to provide them with an income.
But
we need to make sure, on the other hand, that sophisticated countries like the UK get skilled workforces in.
Sure, but the world has changed and the business plan of Europe has not changed with it.
Digby, I'd like to ask you about going forward what sort of trade relationships we might set up outside the EU as well. We have in Britain a very special relationship with the US, and you've hinted at very fast growth, of course, in India and also in China. So how is it going to be easier outside the EU?
What I would like to do, and I'd make an appeal right now, I don't want the civil service to be doing all this because I haven't done it for 43 years. I would like some overseas help. New Zealand were left in the lurch by us in '73 and honed their skills in this. They've offered help, take it. I'd like the unions, I'd like business, I'd like some skilled negotiators from professional services. I'd like people like me who've done it before, bring them in, and basically this is our country.
Yeah.
And we should pull together and have working parties to do the one with America, working parties to do the one with China, one with India, and obviously one with the EU. Try and use the power of trade to get a good working relationship with developing countries so we actually help them.
Do you think this is an opportunity to offer, as Art describes, a more level playing field?
I really hope so. I hope that it's a wake-up call. And at a very practical level, if we do take that Team UK approach to getting new trade deals, then there has to be something at the heart of it that is for working people.
I agree.
It has to be about jobs, good jobs, not any old jobs.
I absolutely agree.
Skills and
they see why it can
workers'
bring it up.
rights.
Yeah.
And if we can do that, I think we'd avoid perhaps some of the problems we've had over the TTIP deal, that transatlantic partnership,
where there has been
people were
widespread
worried
concern
that
about
this was-
loss of industry and jobs.
and privatisation. So we need to be very clear from the start that if we build that kind of consensus, we can avoid some of the mistakes that we've made.
Totally agree.
Artur, but let me come to you. Do you see from outside the UK that actually this is a concern about globalisation, or do you see it as a more specific UK concern about its position within the EU?
Excellent point you make, because what we are experiencing here, the symptoms the British citizens have experienced, are not just EU symptoms, they are globalization symptoms. We have the unique situation where the work which can be done somewhere doesn't need to be done by the people who are at the same place. They can be done anywhere. And we have another challenge coming up, the automation. So the challenges are huge. And again, I believe in the EU we can manage much better together, working out a compromise, than fighting each other. Because what you want, sorry, being blunt,
I know what you mean.
but you want to get the best deal for yourself. I don't want to negotiate with someone who just wants to get the best deal. I want to find a compromise which is good for both sides.
I actually want to see a bit of enlightened self-interest here, which is the best deal for a poor, hard-working person in North England. And if that lifts the living standards of someone in the south of Greece, I'm thrilled to bits. What I don't see at the moment is either of those two things are being satisfied by Brussels.
Do we have time? Because inevitably, and I'm sure you would accept this, in the interim there is uncertainty.
Oh, definitely.
How
And
quickly,
damaging uncertainty.
Yes, quite so. So how quickly can trade pacts, trade agreements be pulled off in your experience?
Well, it depends on what both parties want out of it.
Yes.
And we've never been here before, any of us. If there's a will from us, and if we got it together, I tell you now, these countries would want to do the deal because we are so engaged with them.
Francis, a brief thought?
Well, you could do a deal tomorrow if you're prepared to sell your granny, but that's not the kind of deal that we want.
You don't know my granny.
I was about to say that, but I thought it was disingenuous.
But
I can imagine.
we need to get good deals, but we need to be honest. The economy is already potentially facing damage as a result of the delay. It would be an absolute mistake now to cut jobs and services in the public sphere. What the priority must be is public investment in infrastructure, house building, to keep that demand going through this very difficult period.
I agree with that.
Do you think that Germany will come round to seeing perhaps a bigger picture here?
The bigger picture for Germany will be that we invested and we need the EU, even though the Great Britain is not part of that anymore. So we will do anything to protect the EU. We want to make sure that this step now does not damage our internal relationship. And in order to do that, there will be a price someone has to pay who is outside and not inside. And that has nothing to do with being nasty or whatever. It is self-defense.
Just punishment.
No punishment at all.
reality.
We want to make sure that Europe, as we build it together with you, will continue to exist, and for that reason it will be very difficult to find special deals. But as you said, you have other opportunities. You have China, you have India, and there might be things you can do which you couldn't do before. We will be watching, we will be observing and learning. And let's see how the situation develops.
Well, thank you very much to all of you. Lord Digby Jones, Francis O'Grady and Artur Fischer. That's it from Talking Business in London, but do join us again next week when Michelle Fleury will be in New York examining the state of the American economy as the country prepares to elect its next president. Goodbye.